Hello there, and thank you very much for joining us today on our topic on promoting independence. My name is Shona Karppa, and I'm going to be talking you through about the different aspects of what independence is and what it is to try and promote somebody's independence. So, a wee brief introduction. My background is clinical nursing. I've worked within the healthcare industry for roughly about 16 or 17 years now. Predominantly, my background is in care of the elderly and palliative care. So I'm hoping that with my background knowledge and experience, I will be able to provide you with as much information about promoting independence as possible. The session will last roughly about 10 to 15 minutes. So first of all, we want to talk about what is independence. So when we think of somebody being independent, what we think independent is, it may be completely different to what somebody else thinks independence is. But according to the dictionary, what is independence? It is the quality or state of being independent. So that could be somebody's ability to be independent at a certain skill, or it could be something like a state, a country being independent itself. So when we think about independence for ourselves, we usually tend to think about our physical abilities, emotional abilities, mental abilities, and social abilities. So for myself, when I think about a physical ability, I think about my ability to move. When I think about my emotional abilities, I think about my ability to be able to express myself, let my needs known. Mental abilities, when I'm under stress or strain, or if I'm pressured into doing a certain task, I think about my ability to be able to control my emotions and how to manage certain tasks. And obviously we've got the social abilities, my ability to be able to make friends and have conversation with others. So to me, these are all abilities that makes me independent. But when we think of another person, what abilities they have, they might need some extra support to allow them to make themselves independent to do these tasks that we would consider as a norm. So like I said already, what we consider to be independence may be completely different for others. So we're thinking about a scenario of a gentleman named Mark. He is an 18-year-old male who has a diagnosis of Down syndrome. Mark lives in his own apartment, however can be supported by care staff on a 24-hour basis. Due to Mark's condition, he can find coordination difficult at times and is prone to spillages. He also lacks safety awareness in relation to food preparation. It's lunchtime and he is asked if he can make today's lunch. So let's think about Mark. What independence does he already have? So in this scenario, Mark lives in his own apartment, but to enable him to live in his own apartment, he needs to have his own network of care team of support because of his condition. If he didn't have this support, he would be unable to live safely in his own place independently. Physical abilities, it did say in the scenario that he had lack of coordination and he was prone to spillages. So it may be that Mark has an ability with his gait and his tend to stumble. He may have issues with coordinating his limbs to do certain skills. Or he might have issues with his dexterity, his issues to grip, etc. So in this scenario, we're thinking about what could we do to allow Mark to be independent in making his own lunch, using certain adaptations or maybe support from others to allow him to do this independently. And then we've got communication abilities. In this scenario, there's no recognition that Mark has any issues with communication. However, we need to think that if he did have communication issues, what could we do to make him independent in making his communication needs known? So for Mark, what could we do in this scenario? So we want to make him as independent as possible. So we want to think about a task that we know Mark can do that he can do safely. So with regards to lunch, we want to first of all think about his area. We want to make about the area that he would prepare his lunch in would be safe. And we do this through risk assessment. However, we wouldn't want to let Mark do any tasks that could make him at risk of harm to himself if he doesn't have the cognitive ability or functional ability either. But with Mark's dexterity or coordination skills or prone to spillages, we may want to think about using adaptive cutlery or adapted utensils. This would therefore allow him to prepare his own meal, but try and prevent him from any potential harm such as scalding, cuts, etc. And he would still be able to make his own lunch independently. The task that they would set for Mark would need to be suitable to Mark's abilities. Like I'd mentioned, that Mark might have some cognitive impairment, might not know how to make a meal such as spaghetti on toast, or might not know how to make spaghetti bolognese, anything that requires knowledge on risk assessment with food, whether there's potential for food contamination, if to make sure food's thoroughly cooked with temperatures, etc. This might not be suitable to Mark's cognitive needs. So therefore, we would want to make Mark feel as independent as possible and make him as independent as possible. So the task that I would set aside for him would be, example, if he liked it, would be to make his own sandwiches. So if this was something he'd want to do, making sure he has a safe, clean workspace, making sure he had safe utensils that this gentleman could use, and making sure that the food that we provide to Mark isn't out with its sell-by date. There's no risk of contamination between raw meats and cooked meats. So when Mark goes to make his sandwich, we know that he can do the task independently and not put himself at risk. Mark might be able to make his sandwich quite easily. However, he might not, depending on his processing skills with his cognitive ability. So to try and make Mark as independent as possible, we may want to give him instructions on how to make his lunch in a simple step-by-step manner, using language that he is able to understand and follow easily. So this is a very brief scenario about how we can promote somebody with a disability, for example, to make them independent. But why is it important for us to promote Mark's independence? Well, first of all, it's Mark's right as a human being to be able to do tasks himself. However, we want to make sure that Mark is safe. Although it is his right, we want to look after Mark as best we can. Out of respect, if Mark is turned around in this scenario and says, I would like to make my own lunch, who are we to say that he cannot do that purely because Mark has a condition? So out of respect, we know that Mark is a human being and has every right to do things the same as other people, but he's doing it in a manner that makes him safe, makes others safe around him, and that promotes his confidence and makes him independent in his own right. And that leads us to dignity, making sure that Mark has a dignified role within his own personal care that he delivers for himself and for other people when they're treating Mark with dignity, to allow him to be able to carry tasks out independently. So in a summary, remember, what you may consider as being independent or independence may be completely different to someone else. So we all need some support at some point in our lives to enable us to do certain skills and tasks. Other people just require more. So when we're caring for the people that are involved in our care, we want to make sure that we are looking at outside the box, thinking about what can we do, what is the person's disability, what is it that's preventing them from being independent, and what could we do as healthcare providers to make sure that we're promoting that independence as much as possible. So thank you very much for listening to today's topic on promoting independence. As I mentioned, it's only a very quick 10 to 15 minute subject. And please don't forget to check out our website, h1learning.com, for more information, and to follow us on our social media platforms. And you will find different links on our H1 Learning and on different courses that we provide, including e-learning, face-to-face training, and there's also some other promotional events that we have on our media page also. Thank you very much, and I hope to speak to you again soon on another 10-15 minute chat. Thank you. Bye-bye.